Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate. Okay, I will map out for us what we have done so far. I thought about it a little bit, if we can maybe visualize, just with some help, okay? So, up to so far, we have we'll start over here. We'll go like this, then we'll go top down. Huh?
Je praat een mompelen of misschien tegen jezelf, misschien nog met de hand, ik hoor je niet. Oh, sorry. Don't so soft. It's...
Don't worry, it'll come up slowly.
Okay, that was the question. Yeah, okay.
Don't worry, it starts slow and then it comes up. It's like a melody.
I understand, of course.
Oh, you do? Wow!
That was the best part.
Yeah. Okay, we will go like this. We said Brahman. What do we know about Brahman so far?
Existential consciousness.
Huh?
Existential consciousness.
Existence, consciousness. What are the Sanskrit words? Sat and Chit. So we'll put small Sat, Chit. Okay. And then, so see, we've taken time to understand this. We've taken the whole first section on all about Sat Chit. So now, having spent time on this, we have to continue going and seeing how out of this comes all this. So in Brahman, we'll say in. Don't worry about these words in, on, just, we'll say, my teacher says Brahman enjoys a power. Okay, so in Brahman, Brahman enjoys the capacity to manifest the universe. Okay, and this capacity is called Maya. Oh, too long A's. Maya. Okay, so what is Maya? It means it is all knowledge, all power, in potential. Do you know what in potential means? It means it hasn't manifested. Just like in deep sleep, you have knowledge and power, right, to manifest. But that world has not come yet, has it? That dream world has not come yet. But what happens? Out of you comes the capacity to manifest a world. And this capacity is called, in our case, our mind. So our mind, what projects the world. In this case, we call this capacity Maya. So this means all knowledge, all power is in potential. This means it has not manifested yet. We are talking before the universe even came. Okay, this is Sat Eva Idam Sat Eva Idam Agra Asit Ekam Eva Advitiyam. Before all this was one undifferentiated whole, non-dual whole without a second. One undifferentiated without a second. So this is where we are right now. Nothing has come yet, no world. So we will say here, all knowledge, power in potential. Is this clear so far? If you have any issues on understanding, just go back to the deep sleep. Out of deep sleep arises potential and power. What happens then? A world is manifest. So now we can say when this potential is activated, when it becomes alive, when it's activated. Okay, what happens? This happens. What happens is you sitting in a chair, hearing the question, what happens? That's what happens, okay? So we will call this, we'll draw one big world, okay? Not that there is, edges, the universe doesn't have edges, but just for the sake of drawing, in this case, it has edges. Now, in this world, there is a little mini jiva. Okay? And this jiva is you and I. Okay? Now, when this jiva person asks the question, who created all this? Who created all this? That jiva calls that one what? Ishvara. Ishvara. What does Ishvara mean? In one word. Starts with cause. Cause. Okay. So in English we call this God, Lord. In Sanskrit, it's got a more accurate term, cause of the universe. Okay? And this Ishvara is now, what is this Ishvara? It is technically Brahman and Maya. Clear? So this Ishvara, what we call God, is now all knowledge, all power activated. It is now manifesting the universe. In a state of Maya, it's in potential. When Maya activates, when it manifests, then whoever created this world is called Ishvara. And what is Ishvara? Brahman plus Brahman with Maya. Brahman with Maya. Brahman with Maya activated. Brahman with Maya manifesting the world. Brahman with its potential manifesting this world. And this world is what we now experience. Any questions so far? Simple model, timeless model of Vedanta. So now, then we analyze this Maya, and we said it consists of what? Three gunas. Okay? Three gunas. Three gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. And we said sattva, see, these are expressions of all knowledge, all power, expressions of Maya. So how do you understand these gunas? In one simple word, they are three forms of expressions of all knowledge, all power. And just like RGB, red, green, blue, when you mix them together, you get 16 million types of expressions. In this case, when you mix SRT, you get infinite amount of expressions. What kind of expressions? Well, we said sattva guna is things like knowledge, when knowledge takes place, when you have an epiphany, I got it. When you're happy, sattva guna is dominant. Okay. When we love, when we have empathy, when we feel someone's pain, in that moment, you're in touch with sattva guna. So we'll say empathy. When we are, just, clear about what's going on, we're just clear. We're calm, relaxed. This is identification with sattva guna. So relaxed. So all of these qualities we identify with, okay? But not all the time. This is why we have two more. Remember, when you mix these together, when you mix them, then it's not only this, it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of tamaguna. So what is R for Rajaguna? Rajaguna, we said, it is passion, it is energy, it is getting things done. It is also responsible for pain. If this is responsible for happiness, then Raja is responsible for pain. So in other words, whenever we feel too much pain in our lives, for whatever reason, then what? Rajaguna is probably dominant. So this is why we say the first thing, one of the first practices is to relax. You know, sometimes people are so stressed, and they develop kidney stones. So we say, how's your lifestyle? And then it's busy, it's worried, concerned, it's restless. So all of this adds up and it manifests at the level of the body. So this Rajaguna also at the macrocosm is responsible for projecting the universe. Okay? So projecting. And then at the microcosm, here, what we're experiencing, it is responsible for ambition, action, pain, passion. So when we experience passion, I mean intimacy, how does your body feel? There's heat. So now when someone's angry, how does that feel? There's heat. So this means passion and anger, they are so close with just a slight different amount of sattva on one side and tama on the other side. So this means whenever there's heat, there's pain, there's also passion, there's ambition. This is Rajaguna. We all relate to these, yes? We also relate to Sattva Guna, Rajaguna. But there's more that we experience. So we have Tamaguna. So it's said that Tamaguna is dominant during nighttime. So now nighttime, what happens? People go partying because it's dark and then everything calms down. And then when people go out, right, what happens? The intellect comes down, not much thinking going on. And alcohol, instant tamaguna. So what is tamaguna responsible for? Dullness. Dullness, lethargy, whenever we feel tired for no reason, that means tamaguna is present. Or fatigue, lethargy or fatigue. It also very important is responsible for sleep. Because how do we go to sleep? We first have to become dull. Right? Try going to sleep when you're sharp. No way. So this means you need tamaguna for sleep to sort of just doze off, not think, don't want to think, therefore sleep. It is also responsible for stability. If we only have sattva and raja, that means you're just constantly dynamic, moving, making things happen. There's no stability. One needs to sit down in a chair for a few moments and not move. That's why we also say tamaguna is inertia. Inertia, not moving. So therefore, to sit down and meditate, believe it or not, you need a unique combination of sattva guna, enough to not fall asleep, rajaguna, and enough to sit in one place. Sitting down in meditation, too much sattva guna, the person goes on and on and on and contemplate. They cannot still their mind. Too much rajaguna, then this moving around, fidgeting, the body's restless, it just cannot sit in one place. Too much tamaguna, the person falls asleep. So right combination of these three is what's required for a decently successful contemplation period. So this means, see, in some places we talk about guna management, but this I don't use because, you know, where do you find, let's go to a guna management seminar. You know, you got personal development. This is wonderful material. self-help. This is wonderful material. They tell you, these lovely methods, how to stay afloat, how to stay bright. This is all fine. So we don't need to use these technical terms and now create a seminar, a guna management seminar. These are to be understood in reference to creation, and then just like that Maya elephant, you let it go. Okay? So we need not speak about, oh, you're sattvic today, yesterday you were tamasic, today you're rajasic, what's going on? So we don't use these spiritual words to now, add to our repertoire of language. This is silly business. So SRT. So these three expressions, and also tamaguna is what we call material for the universe. So these three expressions, if you mix them up, there's many more here, but if you mix them up, you have a world of difference, a world of variety. You even have animals who are more tamasic than others who are more sattvic. What's a tamasic animal? They say buffalo, or a sloth. A sloth? It just doesn't, it doesn't move, right? And then they say a deer, more graceful, is sattvic. So, a dog is more rajasic, more active. So even animals share a quality that is more or less of these. So this is what thus creates a wide variety of expressions where? Here in the world that we're experiencing now. And then we said these SRTs, if they are the substance of all things in the universe. Okay? Maya. Now Maya is what? SRT. So technically anything in this world is going to have SRT. So this means now the next verse pointed out 5 elements. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if there's 5 elements, we'll call them like this: space, air, fire, water, earth. So if everything has these 3 qualities, then by definition, we can now turn this into a pie, like this. Okay. Maybe like equal. Okay, so like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So now what the verse wants to say is out of these 5 elements, the whole thing comes. Starting with your sense organs, starting with your organs of action, followed by the subtle body, by the mind, including the physical body. So out of this will come the whole universe. And this will what? Come from this, and this SRT has its being in none other than Brahman. So now let's see what the verse says so that we can continue from here. This is where we stopped. Let's see what the verse says.
May I ask a question? Maya, all knowledge, power, and material, I think.
Maya is all knowledge, all power, and material. Okay. So we can add all knowledge, power, material. Is this clear? Okay. So this is a model, more or less, throughout the Vedic model of creation. So we said Brahmashraya, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo, Gunatmika, Maya, Asti. So in other words, the threefold out of Maya comes or expresses itself as a threefold expression, SRT. And what is this expression? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And then, let's see what we said then. Okay, so let's chant this. Tata akashaha, tata akashaha, sambhutaha, sambhutaha, akashadvayuhu, akashadvayuhu, vayostejaha, vayostejaha, tejassaha, tejassaha, apaha, apaha, adbhyaha, adbhyaha, prathivi, prathivi. So from that, I'll let you read the verse if you want. Maybe I should pause a little bit, because some people like to read the verse before. Okay. So from that Brahman, space is born. Now, from that Brahman, with Maya, space is born. Space is born. Okay? So we have that. And then from space comes, because this is the subtlest, the absolute subtlest material. So from this subtle material, it now comes air. From air, so now air is more densified, it's more dense. From air, which also has a little bit of space, because air came out of space, okay? So air comes out of space, fire comes out of air, water comes out of fire, water, and then earth comes out of water. So these five have now been created by the help of all knowledge power. Okay, so let's see what it says now. What page are we on? 84. Yeah, so we did this. Now, next page, 87. Etesham panchatattvanam. Etesham panchatattvanam. Madhye akashasya satvikam shat. Madhye akashasya satvikam shat. Okay, so etesham, so of these panchatattvanam, 5 elements, akashasya satvikam shat. So the sattvic aspect of space, from the sattvic aspect of space, what is born? Shrotra indriya sambhutam. So in other words, sambhutam evolved what? What has evolved out of the sattvic aspect of space? Shrotra, in other words, capacity to hear. So now, this verse will speak about the sattvic aspect of, these are subtle elements, by the way, subtle elements. So these are not gross. So this is not physical fire, physical water, physical air. This is still in thought mode. Just think about it, thought mode. It's still blueprint. Physical is coming. This is all subtle mode. So from the sattvic aspect of subtle, we put the word subtle here. Subtle elements is born the capacity to hear. From the sattvic aspect, we'll just put an S here, sattva, 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 sattva. From the sattvic aspect of vayoho, satvikam shat, tvagindriyam sambhutam. So from the sattvic aspect of air is born tvak, is born touch, capacity to feel. This is why, your skin, you can feel your air with your touch, with your skin. And then let's see. So it continues like this. So agnehe chakshuhu. From the sattvic aspect of fire is born the eye, Jalasya rasendriya, from the sattvic aspect of jala, water, is born rasa, taste. That means taste, sense. This is subtle, remember, subtle. And from the prithivi, from the sattvic aspect of earth, is born the sense of smell. So what happened now? We have developed the capacity to perceive the world. This is why it's born from the sattvic aspect. Because sattvic aspect, we said, is responsible for knowledge. When you have an aha, where knowledge can take place. Therefore, you need the sattvic aspect to create that which will perceive knowledge of objects, perceive objects in the world. Therefore, the five senses have to be made from the sattvic portion. Okay? You understand why? The logic? So sattva is associated for knowledge of the world taking place. Right now, I see knowledge, I'm not talking about chit now, just information about the world. Information about the world. I see blue wall and so on. So what enables right now the mind to do that? It is the sattvic aspect of these five elements. So these are faculties of perception. Therefore, what has now happened in the process of creation? What have we developed? We have prepared the five faculties of perception which are about to perceive the universe which has not yet come. You understand? So what's happening? The jiva is being prepared to come into the physical world and start to perceive the physical world. Therefore, before you can start create the actual physical body, you have to first prepare what? The subtle body. So what's being built now? The subtle body is being built. Remember when we said what is a subtle body? We said it consists of 17 parts. We said 5 pranas, 5 action organs, 5 perception organs, 5, and we said the mind. So therefore, what are we now building? The subtle body is coming. And therefore, obviously, when the subtle body gets built, what's going to come next? The gross body. And then what's going to happen? Then the subtle body can enter the gross body. And then when the gross body gets built, what will get built along with it? The world. You need to put the physical body in the physical world. So this is all now being prepared. So now the question comes is, where will this data that is to be perceived, where will it be processed? It has to go somewhere, right? It has to go into the cockpit, in the central processing unit. And thus, what's next? The mind. Now the mind is going to get built. And let's see what it says about that. Page 89. Huh?
That's really cool.
Oh, yeah?
Makes sense.
Cool process of creation. Okay. Etesham panchatattvanam samashti sattvikam shat mano buddhyahankara chitantah karanani sambhutani. Okay. So etesham panchatattvanam. So from the samashti sattvikam shat. So from the total aspect, from the total sattvika of all of the 5 elements, is the mind, etc. created. So what's going to happen now is you have, when do we begin? 4:30, okay. We're going to have sattva so sattva of space plus sattva of air plus sattva of fire plus sattva of water plus sattva of earth is going to produce the mind. So can you see the logic why? In other words, you need to create a mind that is produced out of all these five in order to understand all five perceptions, right? You have to you create a mind that understands sight, understands touch, understands color and form, understands taste, and understands smell. Therefore, you need now to add all of these together to create the mind, so that this mind can understand the five types of data that are perceived by five instruments. Okay, so the sum total of the sattvic of the five subtle elements, the inner instrument is created called the antahkarana. Antah means inner instrument. It just means inner instrument. And what is this antahkarana? It consists of the manas. It consists of mind. Just put mind, okay? And what is mind? It says sankalpa vikalpa. Sankalpa vikalpa. Is the door closed?
It's open.
Huh?
It's open.
Oh, it's open. Oh, okay. I was in doubt there for a moment. Yes. So this was a sankalpa, and now when I kind of got some, oh, it's closed. Okay. Are you sure it's closed? Oh, okay. So in other words, you're not quite sure. You can't make up your mind. So sankalpa, I closed the door. Vikalpa, maybe I didn't. Sankalpa, I'm sure I did. Vikalpa, maybe I didn't. So it's like a pendulum going from one side to the other. This is the job of the mind. If you didn't have this, we would get into trouble. We would go fall for any scam, a scam. Hey, come this, and like, oh, okay, whatever. So like, is this a scam? Is this for real? Is this a scam? Is this for real? And then when we get enough data, we say, hey, this is for real, or this is a scam, whatever, and then we make up our minds. So the mind also is your capacity for where fancies, it processes your fancies, our desires, and our emotions. Now, what do all these have in common? Fancies, desires, and emotions. I'm not quite sure where I stand. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Desire is also like this, has this feeling. Emotion is also like, my God, it's constantly flowing like an ocean. Fancies, one moment you can fancy, another moment, no, I don't like it. Now I like it, no, don't like it. So this is the nature of the mind. So when a person cannot not make up their mind, this is sankalpa vikalpa, sankalpa vikalpa. And you can't help it. This is just the job of the mind. So there's nothing wrong with your mind, by the way. There's nothing wrong with your mind. This is first step to understand. And then buddhi. So this antahkarana, remember, obtains, antahkarana is made from the five subtle, from the total aspects of the sattvika portion. Okay? So so now what's going to happen? Antahkarana. And this antahkarana, which is called an inner instrument, it obtains as four different modes. Okay? Four different, and we just give different names to these modes. That's all we do. So to determine these modes, we call it mind. We call it, in this case, what? The buddhi. Now we've got the mode of the buddhi. And what's buddhi? When I finally know that I locked the door or closed the door, and I am sure of it, then I went from mind into what's now operating, the buddhi. So this is concrete. It is for sure. The decision is final. It is also processing inquiry. So whenever we inquire, think about things, we take this information and we process it in our minds when we're going through an exam. When we think about the answers, what's the right answer, what's the wrong answer. All of this analysis, evaluation, ruminating is you're involved with the mode of intellect. It's still the antahkarana, remember. It's still the, but it's experiencing, it's a different mode of the antahkarana. So if you look at the order, what's first? What's first and what follows? Any experience, what's the first that gets activated? Mind. First mind, and then follows the buddhi. The problem is some of us stay too long in the mind. So now this is very painful because it doesn't allow you to settle so this means we have to move it into the buddhi.
This is also when you don't reflect on some wrong notions, you're just in the mind and not using the buddhi to practice some viveka.
Good question. So suppose you create some conclusion and then you're final on that. So this means, where does knowledge take place? In the buddhi, in the intellect. So this means the buddhi was not educated. So on the basis of lack of knowledge, it didn't have enough information. Based on not total information, on that it made a decision. So it does. So this is a different matter now. How much you educate your intellect, it's a different matter. The point is, the intellect decides with whatever information you have. So it's in it for us to be educated so that the intellect can make a conclusion that is informed and helpful. So this is a different matter, but good that you made that distinction there.
And what you say about the mind, first there's the mind, then you mean manas in this context. You say what first comes is the mind.
The mind, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And you mean, with mind you mean manas in this context.
Yeah, so manas is the mind. Manas is the mind.
Okay.
It comes into the mind because it is, you need to assess. You cannot, because see, we need to kind of work in this world. You cannot constantly contemplate on everything. You need to just offload it to something that is going to assess, maybe it's like this, maybe it's like that, and then discard it. Otherwise, you can't even, have a conversation. You'll be so locked into the conversation and thinking about every word. So sometimes we just need to brush it off. This is the mind. So they both, work together. So thank God we have the mind. So two modes have been created, and then ahankara. Ahankara. See this aham, this is a n. It's actually aham. So aham means I, and kara means doer. Ahamkara is also called the subject or the pramata. Same words, ahamkara, subject or the pramata. And what is this ahankara? It has mamatvam. So what is this? It takes ownership of everything as mine. So how to understand this ahankara? They call it ego. It's called ahankara. It's a stamp, and it just goes like this: mine. Pain, mine. Contemplation, my contemplation. Pleasure, my pleasure. Intellect, my intellect. Emotions, my emotion. That's all it does. Constantly stamps every experience happening within the mind and the intellect. That's all it knows. Therefore, if you didn't have ego, if you didn't have ahamkara, what would happen? If I'm hungry, I would start feeding you. Because there will be no sense of individuality. And therefore, the fella could not live. They could not get around into this world. They could not do anything. Therefore, this ahamkara simply stamps whatever is going on in the mind and the buddhi as mine. That means this belongs to this individual. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me. So again, this is a mechanism that is there to individuate, to localize your experience to you, not someone else. You got to get rid of your ego, you know that? No. That's called being on LSD. There's no ego. I don't know, what am I touching? Am I touching you? Am I touching me? What's going on here? That would be terrible. Therefore, the ahamkara is a mechanism to individuate the experience just to you and not someone else. I got hurt. You didn't get hurt. I got hurt, therefore I can now work on that hurt. You see? Otherwise you can't work because it would not be yours, it would be someone else's. And therefore this mamatvam, this ahamkara, which stamps everything, is what produces the sense of doer. That's the only reason, because what's doing? What's causing the doing? What's deciding to do? The intellect. So this mamatvam stamps, this is my doing, my walking, my conclusion, my decision, my understanding, my epiphany, my this, my that. Therefore, because there's an ahamkara, it produces a sense of doership. And it should produce a sense of doership. Otherwise, you could not recognize that you're walking from here to there. There will be no sense of doer. You'll be like, I don't know, if I'm walking, it's just weird. Even weird to think about not having an ego, an individuality. And also it produces bhoktrtvam. This is an enjoyer. So produces a doer and also an enjoyer when it's identified with what? Use the knowledge that we taught so far. It produces a sense of pleasure or happiness when it's identified with what?
The thing it pursues, the object.
Think of those 5 model. The model of the 5 model, 5 kosha model. Okay, you see, Anandamaya kosha. We said when there's identification with the sattvic aspect of causal body, then it manifests as I'm happy. Therefore, what stems that? Mamatvam, the ahamkara, my happiness. Therefore, it now produces doership and enjoyership. It produces doership because of the intellect and produces enjoyership because of the Anandamaya kosha. That's the dynamic mechanics of what produces the karta bhokta, doer. And see, when I say enjoyer, I also mean the sufferer. So you're not just enjoyer, but the sufferer, the experiencer. Okay, and chittam, this is the 4th mode. Chittam, this is the capacity that causes you to surface impressions, past impressions, to the conscious mind. This is called memory. It surfaces all the impressions to the conscious mind. Therefore, it is a recollection mechanism. Again, we need a recollection so that we can save time in this world and navigate. And also, it is what changes the direction of your thinking. Did you know that your thinking is a product of memory? Because what do you always think about? You think about the thoughts relative to what you have learned in the past. So chittam changes the course of your thinking. On YouTube I watched, there's a man who has no memory at all. He had a disease that ate up the hippocampus responsible for memory. So I could be looking at you right now like this. I would turn around. I could be looking at you like this. And I would turn around. I could be looking at you like this. And I would, you understand? No memory whatsoever. And this fella, when he had this disease around 40, it got into his brain, very rare. He was married and he was just crying and crying and crying. His wife said, "Why are you crying?" And he couldn't, he eventually gave in and said, "Because I am unable to think. I am unable to think." He couldn't think because his memory was not functional. This is, I cannot even imagine what this is like. And, but at the same time, he's constantly happy. He's now in his 70s or 80s, constantly happy, because memory is also responsible for all of the events, right? This guy's like a child, I tell you. My God. And so I thought it was a very good analysis of what happens if you take just one system out. and it just can't work anymore. And constantly, what is he writing on a piece of paper? I am aware right now. I am aware. No, right now I'm aware. And he constantly writes this down, trying to establish himself in one moment of time. And you ask him, what's your experience? He says, I am unconscious. It's like being dead. I'm unconscious. I'm unconscious. It's like I'm conscious. So in other words, he wants to put himself into a place of stability, into a place of time. But because the memory is not there, therefore there's no sense of time, because I don't remember the last millisecond. So this means it's as though living unconsciously. Yeah. So far, what has been established? So far, what has been built? The 5 faculties of perception and the mind. Okay? How are we doing? Are we okay?
Totally impressed.
Now, let's see what happens from the rajas aspect. We've talked about the sattvic aspect of the 5 sattva elements. Now, let's see. Let's put in the R. So, S done. R. Now, if Raja guna is guna means quality, right? If Raja guna is responsible for, what do we say, action, then what do you think out of Raja guna is going to come? If it's responsible for action, what do you think then is going to come out of Raja guna? Movement, which is 5 faculties of action. Okay, so let's see. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye akashasya rajasamshat vagindriyam sambhutam vayoho rajasamshat. So, same thing. So now we're looking at the Raja aspect of the subtle elements. And it says, from the Rajas of Akasha, from space, what's born? Organ or faculty for speech. From Rajas of air is born hand. That means the capacity to grasp. Now let's go back to space. When I said capacity for speech, obviously that's going to, is this a system for a parrot? Is this a system for a cat? This is what? A system for a human being. So now, if this is, look at this, if this is a system that applies to the entire creation, this means these exact models apply to devas, apply to every single jiva that is like a human being throughout the universe, in every single world, including those in heaven, devas, devatas, angels, you call them whatever you want, it's exactly the same for them as it is for us. So from the rajas comes speech, and then from air comes the capacity to grasp. From fire comes the capacity for feet or locomotion, the ability to move. And then from water, the rajasic aspect of water comes the upastha, which is procreation, the genitals, and from the rajasic aspect of earth comes gunendriya, so comes gudendriya, comes evacuation, that means the anus. And what happens? Samashti rajasamshat pancha pranaha sambhutaha. From the total rajasic aspect of all five, so rajas of space plus rajas of air plus rajas of fire plus rajas of water plus rajas of earth equals pancha pranaha, equals the 5 pranas. So this means you need these 5. Now you need what to create? You need to associate 5 organs of action to prana. So what is prana responsible for? It is that which links up your movement, like your hands and your legs and genitals and all this, to what? The mind. To the mind. So in other words, the physical, right? The movement, the hand, the organs of action are facilitated by prana, and prana is facilitated by the mind. So that's the link. You think that your hand is a direct movement of your brain. No, there's an intermediary. It's first from the brain, modifying the prana, and then what do you mean by modifying? Electrical impulse. That's prana. So in other words, from the brain modifies or affects the prana, and prana affects your hand, and the hand just goes left, or the legs walk, or so on. You understand? So the 5, what has been developed so far? 5 faculties of perception, 5 faculties of action, and the mind, the antahkarana, which is going to have 4 modes, 4 different modes. So now what's going to happen is these 5 subtle elements, see, they're still in subtle form, yeah? These 5 subtle elements are going to undergo a process called grossification. So now they're going to grossify and become 5 physical elements. The moment they become 5 physical elements, we have the Big Bang. We have literally physical objects: hydrogen, helium, lithium, carbon, oxygen, and all of these periodic table of elements will be built when these 5 elements go through a conversion process. How to explain this? As I use the example, if you have something subtle like hydrogen, 2 hydrogen and oxygen, which are gaseous. They're gaseous states. You can't see it. You can walk through hydrogen, walk through oxygen, but you mix them together, and what happens? You have, a pool of water. Okay. So this means they've gone through a process of conversion, and now they've been grossified. And this grossification in Vedanta is called Panchikarana. So Panchikarana, it means becoming 5. So each one of these will now have a little bit of each one. So they'll all share each other's attributes. Now they're just pure space, pure air, pure fire, pure water, pure earth. Right, so what happens now? We'll draw out is going to go through grossification. And then what's going to happen? You will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Space, air, fire, water, earth. And then we'll also have 3 gunas. Can you see? Okay. So that's what's going to happen now. This will go through a process called panchikarana, grossification. And when it does, then you have the physical body and the physical universe finally come. Okay, so page 95, let's see. Oh, long verse. Okay, so page 90. Etesham panchatattvanam Etesham panchatattvanam tamasam shat panchikrta panchatattvani bhavanti Panchikrta panchatattvani bhavanti Panchikaranam katham iti chet Panchikaranam katham iti chet Etesham panchamahabhutanam Etesham panchamahabhutanam. Okay, and then the rest we will not read. So, in essence, this process that's going to take place is called, Panchikarana. And it's a long description. I'll do the Sanskrit later. But in essence, what he wants to say is, how do each of these, now what's the difference between this element and this element, right? What's the difference between subtle air and gross air? See, the gross air is what you're breathing right now, okay? But gross air also means anything that is in a gaseous state, okay? What's the difference between subtle fire and physical fire? Well, the first difference is one's in a thought form, and the other is in a gross form. So this means you cannot perceive this. So your thoughts, remember, what are your thoughts made out of? We said the antahkarana is made out of the 5 subtle elements. So this means your thoughts are made out of 5 subtle elements, and then your physical body will be made out of what? 5 gross elements. So this means your thoughts are the same quality from which this entire physical universe came. Think about that. From what did this universe come? From the kind of thoughts, that kind of matter, the matter that your thoughts are, from that matter, this physical universe came. This is why there's sometimes, imagine in alchemy, you just think it and you manifest it. Now, I don't know what the truth of that is, but, it's kind of a, worthy of considering. So out of this subtle, this is why it says in one of the Upanishads, Atha Bahu Syam, and then he merely thought God merely thought and the whole universe came. So he merely thought from the same material that you and I think. But let's go through this conversion process. Okay, so I'll do this Sanskrit here. So panchi karanam katam. So how to make each fivefold. Tamasam sha swarupam ekam ekam. So the tamasic aspect of the each of the five subtle. So we got tamasic aspect now. Tamaguna, 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 tamaguna. So now we are working with, we're borrowing the tamasic aspect. We're working with the tamasic aspect of the five subtle elements. Dvidha vibhaja. So dividing into two equals, ekam ekam ardham, you keep the other half intact. So what's going to happen? So just suppose you take, I'm just going to amplify this space, okay? I'm going to amplify it right here. So this is still subtle space, and we have here three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Now what's going to happen is this portion, we can bring it over, and just suppose we're going to, just kind of go like this. Like this. So that's tamaguna. So this tamaguna portion is going to get divided into two. And keep one intact. So one is going to be preserved. So what? One is going to be original. But the other half is going to be passed to air. So now air has a little bit of space. Okay, so let's see how to explain this better. Divide into four, swabhaga chatushtaya. So gets joined. Okay, so now, if you think, okay, metaphor, forget about this. This is a little too complex. Okay, metaphor. Suppose there's five fellas. Okay, we're all going to a party, five of us. I'm called space, you're called air, you're called fire, you're called water, and you're called earth, okay? And remember, all subtle. I'm Mr. Subtle Space, Mr. Subtle Air, Mr. Subtle, right, fire, Mr. Subtle, water, Mr. Subtle Air. We're all subtles. And I say, hey, fellas, come over to my party. Here, have my cake. Have my cake. And what do? Have my space cake. Okay. Okay. Have my space cake. Okay. And I'm gonna cut it in half. I'm gonna have one half of the cake for myself, and the other half I will divide into 4 parts. Therefore, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we all have what? So now air is spacey, fire is spacey. It's got a little bit of space. It's got a little bit of spaceness inside it. It's got a little bit of space cake inside it. So all of you fellas now are influenced by, a little bit of my spaceness. Technically, according to the book, you have 12.5% of me. Okay? And now what happens? I go to subtle fella of what? Air. And now same thing. He goes, hey fellows, have my airy cake. And so we all cut half. I have 1/4. You have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. The moment we have that cake, what happens? We are no longer Mr. Subtle Air. We are Mr. Gross Air. Understand? So this means what happens now? In order for me to become a space, to become from subtle to gross, I needed 12.5% of your tamaguna. 1/4 of your tamaguna. 12.5%. Okay? So this means now what happened? So tamaguna we all have of each other, like a little bit of tamaguna of each other. And therefore, that is what grossifies me, the subtle space. Is this a little bit better explanation?
Yes.
So maybe now, okay, so tamas aspect of each of the 5 subtle, tamas aspect each of the 5 subtle, dividing it into 2, just like a cake, you divide that cake into 2, and then keep 1/2 intact, ekam ekam ardham, that means for yourself, and give the other half to these other folks, to these other subtle folks. Right, so chaturdha vibhaja, so divide it into 4, just what I said. Svabhaga, no, it's not important. And therefore, etebhyaha panchi karta panchamaha bhutebhyaha stula shariram bhavati. From this 5 gross, from now, the 5 gross physical body is formed, and the physical world is now formed. In fact, there's no difference between the physical world and your physical body. Why? Because they are made from the same 5 gross elements. Okay, and tomorrow we will continue, because it's not too much details.
Can I share something?
Yes, please.
What I'm wondering, if in the next couple of days you still have some, made this practical for me, the main question is how to apply the Vedanta knowledge in concrete situation and in daily life.
Right.
So I don't know if it...
See, yeah, I know. I mean, see, this is a little bit now, see, this is what we did at the beginning, right? I'm just following the program. So right now, this is creation process. I cannot, now answer that question. We began with values, Shama, Dhamma, right? So, it's kind of like being put on a spot now to go back to the beginning of the program. Does anyone else want to share? Because, I kind of feel guilty for not doing something now. Yeah.
It's not necessary.
Yeah, okay, so I'll tell you what, because...
Well, what you also do, you keep on referring to the Satya Mithya, and of course this is explaining the whole creation, and it's got a bigger status.
Yeah.
Like you did before, you build up this whole universe,
Yeah, yeah.
The basic idea stays the same, no?
See,
that you can help. That can help you always in your life.
Okay,
Look at creation.
I like that. Okay.
How do I? What's my relation to creation?
Excellent,
So
excellent.
you can take
See, this is exactly how I personally go about it. So thank you so much for sharing. See, when I can't answer a question, I'll just go how I do it. Right? It's the easiest thing you can do. How do I use this information? It occupies my mind. If I don't occupy my mind with this information, what will my mind be occupied with? Useless thoughts, ruminating on ordinary things. Therefore, I would rather contemplate on something that comes from the Lord's knowledge, some knowledge, than contemplating on my own stuff, that just, thoughts. So this is the best I can say.
But like the practical part of Vedanta is mostly Satya Mithya, and this is more the background, the explanation for the mind, so it has something to...
Satya Mithya, I don't look at it as practical. I look at it as just an understanding in which you can relax and do your life, conduct your life. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but Vedanta, if it were to be up to me, what would be the purpose of this teaching? To reassure you, and you can rest in this knowledge. This can become your dominant force that you think about. It's something that reassures you. It's a reassuring agent, a reassuring knowledge.
Can you say something?
Aren't these questions kind of inbuilt into every jiva to ask, who am I, where do I come from, what is God, and this is the answer to it. And if I don't have the answers, then I'm totally lost.
Yeah, you see?
That's kind of how I interpret this model, is to help my mind to relax.
Yeah, exactly the same. So it's just redirecting your thoughts on some knowledge that is reassuring. Someone else wants to say something?
Yeah, and the way I process this is I see this as a model, and it's not more and not less than a model. And it's the way Vedanta looks at this as the creation. Okay, but that does not subtract. It is in consciousness.
Yeah.
And it is in being, and there is a more. And my thinking needs an explanation.
Yeah.
And this is the Vedantic explanation.
This is a Vedantic explanation. See, thank you. So what I want to just mention again for Prem Buddha, remember those cards that I recommended?
Mm-hmm.
The ACT deck. So this is the practical aspect of it.
I'm going to order them, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so maybe it's also about timing. So I understand that we're in the middle of the train and it needs to go on. We don't want to step out and look. But maybe in the end, on Sunday, we might create a moment for people, I don't know, with you or without you, to share a little bit. And so what do we do next week? Act cards and mindfulness, and so I can understand the train cannot stop now for all the mind things that come up. But when we reach the station, maybe on the station we can have a little session.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Any? Yeah.
Like
Any?
an open Q&A.
Yeah, but it's a more informal.
Open Q&A. Yeah. 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 Oh, but whatever notes you've taken, you can just throw questions on that, you know. But please find it within the model that we learned. Sometimes we like to go outside the model, within the model. Well, that's our time then. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.